So, 6200. I took that class back in 2021 when I first joined the program. Prior to that, I had a year in anthropology, and then I learned about the dual program. So I applied the second semester in anthro, and I didn't get in, and so I reapplied, and I got in. So by the time I started that class, I had been a grad student for at least a year. And I was in the anthropology side. And one thing that was significant when I was in that class was when I started anthro, we had to do applied anthropology, and Dr. Friedis did a thing called Pathfinder, and where it was you had to do a bunch of stuff, but I'll talk about one significant part. I talk about the other parts maybe in other areas because they had a great impact on my whole academic career. So in there, you had to interview 3 people who were where you wanted to be, figure out how they got there, what they did, because supposedly it was supposed to help you help plan better, right? And I say supposedly because you might see they did stuff you're not willing to sacrifice, right? Like when they started doing all that stuff, they were in their 20s, 19, 22. I was 40 years old. So while I don't have the same time frame, I might have to navigate a little different, but it still was very insightful. So when I interviewed my aunt, who has been public health her entire career. So my mom was 65 at that time. So my aunt was probably 60. No, my mom died 66. My mom was probably 60 at the time. So 61. So my aunt was probably about 64, not quite retired. So she went straight to college, then got a master's public health her whole life. Never knew it until I got into this program, which is a whole nother story. And then she introduced me to 2 people from Penn State. One, they both had PhDs, but one did a PhD in public health and a master's in anthro, and the other flipped it. And so they were able to say they loved the fact that I was taking this program. They wish it had been available to them, and the effects that having the anthropology experience had on them as public health practitioners. They talked about, because I came in during COVID, right? So you had the people who were like, they're stupid, why won't they get the shot? Or they're stupid, why would they get the shot? Or I don't know which way to go, so let me just give it time, right? So you have all those different people. And so in the class, the professor began to talk about how stupid individuals were and selfish for not taking the shot. The reason was this individual, I don't even think is in the program anymore, and finding out history after talking to other people, it makes sense why this conversation, or how this conversation should happen. And he talked about how people were selfish and they don't only care about themselves and they're not thinking and they need to take the shot, and why wouldn't they? And then now you have the people who are like, yeah, they're dumb, and you see the people who aren't vaccinated or still trying to figure it out, shrinking. And by this time, I had been in the military 20 years. I was a senior leader. I know what it means to be a leader and to frame the next generation of people. So I felt like I had to say something. So I just rose my hand and I said, we need to be careful of labeling people because it affects the way we treat them. And we're going to go into communities where we don't always agree with things. But that doesn't mean we have a right to judge them or label them because it affects how we treat them. And I said, the people who haven't gotten the shot yet didn't say they were never getting it. Says some of them said it, which is fine. And some said they just need more time. Why does that matter? Would you meet a woman at a event in a strenuous, stressful environment and be like, you know what, I'm gonna marry you? Answer's no. So why would you put something in your body that you can never get out if you don't know anything about it? So you have that. And then I said, and we need to be mindful when we're in positions of leadership of saying certain things because we're teaching others how to think. And I think we need to realize there's a historical track record of this country and science and health and disease and experimenting on Black and brown bodies and female bodies. So as a white male, you don't have the same lived experience of women going in with female issues and not being treated respectfully. As a white male, you're not having the experience of knowing your grandmother almost died because they told her she was just old and deal with it. And then when we took her out of the hood to a suburban doctor, they said you have stage 3 cancer, even though she'd been dealing with them for years. So until you stop and understand the story behind why these people are making these decisions and not just listening to the news or the Pfizer company people who are coming on and making you sway more this way, or the algorithm that is only feeding you the things to help you, why don't you meet the person where they are as a person? And so that became something I had to carry with me into my research for anthropology, because I was going and dealing with Black older women, and just because you're Black is not enough, because there's different lived experiences, socioeconomic, education, religion, were you a single parent or married, did you have to live the struggle, and if you didn't have the struggle, then you don't understand. There's so many dynamics in a diaspora of Black women. And in going in and not just going in like, hey girl, but going in humble, going in trying to understand, and going in and letting them teach me something, even changed my research area of, because I knew we had issues with maternal health, and I had a lived experience where I almost died both. My son almost died giving birth, during birth, and I told him something was wrong. He was 6 months, and then I almost died. I was dying when he was like 8 to 10 years old, to where I had to have surgery to save my life, and they didn't know if I was going to wake up because they waited so long. So in my mind, I know it, but going into the community and that I wanted to help, not bringing what was important to me and letting them tell me what was important to them, it shifted my thought. And I remember dealing with Miss Lee, and she talked about that, right? Because she's a white female, educated, going into these communities, and it's easy to look at the numbers and see stuff, but it's different when you meet the people. It's not that they don't want to eat right, they don't have the access. So what can we do? Instead of, why don't they eat right? Don't they know that diabetes comes from fast food? Well, have you even driven to the area to see their lived experience, right? And so being in that moment, it helped me better be a practitioner. It made me a better researcher, and it made me a better advocate. And so I do remember that, as well as it gave me resources to different programs, like how to use CDC to prove points, other areas where we get data that I didn't know about because I've never had to use them, that was helpful when writing and supporting all my research. So I have a different experience because I came back at 40 after having a bunch of different experiences, so I understood quantitative versus qualitative because I was an analyst. But having a full understanding of how to combine them, and a full understanding of how to get resources as a civilian versus the data I had access to active duty, that was the most helpful in that course for me.